Welcome to Student Connections, where students connect with their community.
Hello and welcome to Student Connections here on M6, your hometown station. I'm Kara Biskarner, and here with me today is Mr. Rock Stevens of the Atrium Cafe. Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
So I hear the Atrium Cafe has a bit of like an eclectic taste. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, I would say it's more than just a bit. It's from top to bottom. It's an 1890s building. We purchased it in 2008. We totally gutted it right back to the brick walls. And every stick of material that you see on the inside is material that we have salvaged from homes and buildings that's been demolished. The main dining area is really comprised to recreate an 1890s theme, and it's an 1890s building.
Yeah, definitely.
So we tried to recreate an 1890s theme, very historical. We have collected from homes and buildings that have been demolished in the area.
Yeah.
Architectural features, columns, pillars, just wonderful architectural pieces to move people back in time to what Port Huron may have been like in the 1890s.
Yeah.
So that's the main dining area. Once you leave that room, you'll go into the actual atrium part, and that's the part that has all of the glass windows.
Yeah.
And that's more of a 1920s, 30s, even into the 1940s. It's high Art Deco.
Yeah.
We were fortunate to come across at the Antique Yard Sale Trail. It happens at the end of August every year. These wonderful church chandeliers that came out of Detroit that are described as 1920s Gothic Deco church chandeliers.
Wow.
So wonderful chandeliers.
That's so cool.
The seats that people have the option of sitting in, you could either sit in the traditional chairs in the Art Deco room, or you could sit in these 1929 Art Deco theater seats.
Yeah.
And that is just so much fun.
Yeah.
And I had so much fun restoring those. I take a section out in the yard each year. I'm scraping, I'm sanding, I'm staining, and reupholstering. The trickiest thing was with hammer and chisel, removing the petrified chewing gum.
Yep.
And it's wherever little fingers could reach, layer upon layer. But it was comical. So luckily, with one smack of the hammer, because it was petrified, it'd go flying across the yard. But we've restored those, and our guests love those.
Yeah.
In that room, we feature, among other things, a collage of Colleen Moore, who is the film star that was born and raised early in her life in Port Huron, Michigan, became the highest paid actress in Hollywood in the 1920s. Her base salary, whether she made her movie or not, was $12,500 a week.
Wow.
And she, along with Clara Bow, another Hollywood starlet, were the two women that personified the bobbed hair look of the 1920s flappers. Prior to that, a woman would never consider cutting their hair because that was the epitome of their womanhood.
Exactly.
And they'd wrap it up in a big Gibson hairdo, stick a hairpin in it, and that's how they went through life.
Yeah.
So the bobbed hair was a whole new style. And Colleen Moore, born and raised in Port Huron, was pretty much one of the two women that made that a popular movement across the United States.
Wow. It's kind of cool. So how did you get the idea for the Atrium Cafe?
Interesting enough, when my wife and I moved from Oakland County to St. Clair County back in the mid-70s, my wife, my sweetie, worked at JCPenney, and in close proximity to that was Diana's restaurant. And I would meet her there for lunch, and we would sit in the old Diana's restaurant and just look around at the historical ambience. We fell in love with it. And I knew from the moment I married my sweetie in 1971 that was her dream, to have her own restaurant. And so while sitting there, I would say to her, sweetie, someday, this is the kind of restaurant we're going to build you. And we actively set out acquiring all of the architectural pieces over a 30-year period to make that happen.
That's such a sweet story to see that you guys have had this for 30 years planning this entire restaurant.
I now think of myself as one of Port Huron's all-time greatest procrastinators. Taken 30 years.
Oh my gosh. So how did you come up with the name for the Atrium Cafe?
Well, when you looked at so many of the Victorian style English European castles, they were cold, they were drafty, but quite often they would have a glass enclosure, an atrium, attached onto it so that sunlight could come in, even in the winter months. They could grow, crops, vegetables, whatever. They could have plant life out there. And that was a look that always appealed to us. And we had made up our mind, given the opportunity, we wanted to create something that would simulate the atrium look. So hence we needed to put an addition on that was pretty much all glass. So we have glass walls for the most part. We have skylights so it begins to simulate an atrium concept.
Somewhere to bring the light into the restaurant.
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect.
And if you live through Michigan winters, by God, you need as much light coming in as you can get.
That is so true. So I hear the Atrium Cafe building has a long history itself. What is it?
Well, originally it started out as the Port Huron outlet for the National Biscuit Company, like breakfast biscuits, which later became Nabisco. After that, it became a drugstore. It was a specialty meat shop. We have a photo inside that shows it when it was a meat shop with the meat carcasses hanging. And I think on the back of that photo, it's dated maybe 1912. Its longest tenure was from 1939 to the mid-70s. It became the Military Street fruit market. And many of the old timers today will come in and they have recollection of that. They recall as young kids that they would go in there and they could buy fruits, and they recall frequenting that establishment.
Yeah. So what was it like to put everything together and make it what the atrium is today?
You know, it was so much fun because literally we had collected so much, we didn't even have a full inventory mentally because it went over a 30-year period. When we got the building and gutted it, we brought in all of this material. It's this huge pile of lumber and material in the center of the room. And it was so cool to almost every day watch your dream, your 30-year-old dream, begin to manifest itself. And even though my wife and I were putting in long hours, we'd stagger to bed maybe 11:30 at night, totally exhausted, instant sleep. But at 4 in the morning, one or both of us wide awake with all these ideas. When are you awake? Yeah, I'm awake. And we'd have to get up and sketch out the next wall. And every day, we just couldn't wait to get back over there. We got to watch our dream manifest itself right in front of us. It was just so delightful. And we realized what a fortunate and opportunistic adventure for us to be engaged in.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the coolest stories that I've ever heard about putting a restaurant together, is that it happened over 30 years.
Yeah, just remarkable.
So what do you think the hardest part of putting the atrium together was?
You know, I think having the courage, big step, obviously. And the bottom line is I spent 10 years of my life with the Port Huron School District running Project Opportunity, encouraging people to take a chance, take a step in their life. And so it was just time for me to practice what I've been preaching for so long. And here's just another obstacle. And again, it's you can't be afraid to back yourself into a corner because then you're going to stand up and you're going to have to work as hard as you can to make it happen. And that's kind of what happened. But it was the biggest challenge, I think, was just having the courage to say, it's time to stop talking about this. Let's just do it.
You never know if you don't try.
You're right.
So how do you think the atmosphere affects the kind of experience your customers have?
Oh, it is so cool. We've had 2 weddings there already.
Oh, wow.
And we've had 2 young couples that were engaged walk in there and they just fall in love with the restaurant. And it's such a romantic setting. And in both cases, the young lady would say to her betrothed, honey, this is where I want to get married, or right there in front of those doors or in front of that archway. So we've had 2 weddings there. And I think I'm convinced it's probably the most romantic setting in the whole county.
Wow.
And it's just delightful. We'll have guests coming in that maybe have their lunch. And when we first opened up, we'd have these ladies that would come in, have lunch, and then nestle up in a corner, take their shoes off, put their feet up under them on a cushion, and with a book, a cup of coffee and tea, and they'd be there for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And their claim was that, my God, this is such a homey place. We just love being here.
Yeah, I know one of my favorite places in Michigan is Mackinac Island.
Yes.
And when I walked into the Atrium Cafe, that's exactly what it reminded me of. Is like I was walking into Mackinac Island because it has that same like 1890s feel to it.
Certainly.
So that's very cool, and we'll be back with more after this. Hello and welcome back to Student Connections. I'm your host, Kara Biss-Karner, and I'm talking to Rock Stevens about the Atrium Cafe today. So what was it like putting together a menu for the Atrium Cafe?
Oh, that's an interesting question because when we started, it was so simplistic. Our first thought is, we're just going to do an ice cream parlor, a sweet shop.
Yeah.
And And so that was always in the back of our mind because that sounded so simplistic. But we realized at the south end of Port Huron, there weren't that many really attractive eateries.
Yeah.
And so we decided if we're already going to go ahead and open this up, certainly we can do the full ice cream desserts, but let's go ahead and have a restaurant. So our restaurant, and we wanted to phase our way into it.
Yeah.
We had heard of so many restaurants that when they opened, it was overwhelming. It'd take
Yeah.
2 hours to get good service. People were just walking out in a huff.
Exactly.
And so we decided we're going to have a very simplistic menu initially. We're going to overstaff. And I'm convinced, hearing people talk that had opened other restaurants and now they're opening ours, they claim it was the smoothest opening they'd ever seen.
Oh, wow.
But we started with a very simplistic menu, and we started with the lunch menu, okay? And the lunch menu had a lot of salads on it. My wife wanted to do healthy foods, so a lot of salads. And from there, we evolved from salads, we went in a lunch menu, we started doing a breakfast menu. After that, we evolved into dinner specials, and then we went to full dinner meals.
Yeah.
And now I'm convinced we have one of the most extensive menus throughout St. Clair County in terms of the offerings. And then every day we have a whole litany of dinner specials.
Wow.
So it's a very extensive menu. I thought it was interesting when we first opened up and it was the lunch that we were primarily promoting. And we'd have a packed house. I mean, every table, every chair for lunch. And you know how there are chick flicks?
Yep.
Okay. I became convinced that our restaurant became a chick restaurant. On my prep period or my lunch period from Port Huron High School, I'd shoot over there real quickly, see how things are going. I'd walk in the back door, I'd walk out on the floor, the main dining room. It was all women. And I'm convinced it was the salads. And then for downtown, it was easy access for the secretarial staff.
Yeah.
And so that became the first clients that showed up. Tended to be probably 95% young ladies.
Oh my gosh.
And then from there, as our menu evolved, and we began having more heartier food besides just salads, then they were able to draw on their boyfriends, their husbands.
Yeah.
And we certainly expanded our menu. But it was kind of interesting, the evolution of it. We started out very simplistic, and it continued to evolve. Some of our special things for dinners right now, and I like having things on our menu that you can't go down the street and get somewhere else.
Exactly.
So one of our dinner specials that I'm convinced nobody else has it is like a chicken Wellington. Have you ever had chicken Wellington?
I've never had chicken.
Oh God, it is delightful, and it's a rather pricey dish, but it has a chicken breast, and then it'll have it'll be wrapped in a puff pastry. We'll have things stuffed inside of it.
Oh my gosh.
With cheeses and specialty meats.
You're making me hungry.
Oh yeah, and the tarragon sauce is just delightful. And tarragon is a very extreme, strong, sharp tasting spice. So you have to be careful with it. But my wife has just totally mastered that.
Oh my gosh.
And when I speak of my wife, my sweetie, her name is Gail, she has had that uncanny ability wherever we travel, in our vacations around the U.S. or whatever, going to a restaurant, we would always take a logbook with us, and the logbook would have a plus and minus column of the restaurants we went into, the things we liked, the things we didn't like.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
With the intent that when we open our own, we're going to include as many of the pluses, eliminate the minuses. But my sweetie has always had that ability when she could taste food, she could mentally dissect what's in it.
Oh my gosh.
And usually come home and nail it, and then over a period of time, tweak it, add her own touches. And it's been suggested that the way to a man's heart is through his tummy. And if that's the case, it was hook, line, and sinker with me. I had no choice but to follow. And as we can appreciate, my sweetie and I met at Avondale High School in 1965. We dated in high school. And when one is smitten by the love bug, one has a little option other than to follow. And when I found out she could cook too, oh my gosh, there was no stopping me. So I've been a very happy man all of my life in terms of expanding my culinary horizons and just eating so very, very well.
Yeah.
But we have, like the chicken Wellington is just one of our specialty dishes. We like Monday night becomes our theme of Mexican Monday. Besides all the normal wonderful things on the menu, Mexican Mondays, I'm convinced the best wet burritos to be found. I long for Mondays just to tie into another wet burrito. And then I'll finish it off with a Mexican sundae.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, it's almost like a fried ice cream that we do that is just so delightful. And that's just a great Monday night. Tuesday becomes Fish Taco Tuesday. And when my guests were coming in and say, Rock, you got to put fish tacos on the menu, I'm thinking, I've never heard of such a thing.
Who eats
And
fish tacos?
it did not sound appetizing to me, but after 2 years of being pestered with last year's Lent, knowing more people are going to be eating fish, we got the ingredients. My wife said, well, let's try this. She made up her own special Southwest sauce. She does special things with the wraps we put them in.
Oh my gosh.
And the moment we put it on the menu, we'd sell out every time they were on the menu. And I kept going out, and we now do it, not just Tuesdays, but now it's Tuesday and Friday. We keep buying more and more fish just to keep up with the demand.
Wow.
And I had no idea there was such a following across the U.S. of people loving fish tacos.
Yeah.
And we have guests claim it's the best they've ever had.
Wow.
So I'm excited about that. Our salmon dinner is the same thing. We've had people that grew up on the West Coast, Oregon, Washington State, getting salmon right out the boat.
Yeah.
That make the claim, Rock, this is the best I've ever had. And we love those kind of positive accolades, and that's our goal. One of the things that was another specialty item was this 12-ounce pork chop. That was delightful. We make our own special cherry dipping sauce that we blend ourselves for it. And our customers love the 12 ounces. I call up the butcher and I say, listen, this is the deal. Customers love the 12-ounce pork chops, but I'm looking for a wow factor. Give me a 16-ounce pork chop. So they now butcher them at 16 ounces. And when we take one out to a guest, every head in the restaurant looks and is like, my God, what the heck was that? There's just one
I know.
And people just find that delightful. So we have many, many specialty dinner items. Our desserts, we're kind of known for our desserts.
Yeah, definitely.
And when they did the Best in the Blue of the best desserts, there were 12 throughout St. Clair and Sanilac Lake County. Of the 12 desserts, 4 of them lived right at our restaurant. And interesting enough, it wasn't even our signature dessert, the bumpy cake. And the bumpy cake is just to die for. But whether it's the banana splits, I'm convinced the largest, the best in the area. The bumpy cake, I mean, you're not going to get anything like that anywhere else. And I know that Saunders will turn out like a bumpy cake today, but it's not like the old original. And because my sweetie remembered what they taste like and knew what went into it to create that taste, she simply has duplicated that.
It's amazing.
Awesome. So we have a following just for the desserts.
Oh my gosh.
We'll have some guests come in and order a meal, order a dinner, take a couple bites, but go ahead and immediately order the dessert, eat the whole dessert. And their comment is that, no, I can take the meal home and reheat it.
Exactly.
But I'm here for the dessert.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of been our custom, is just seeing these guests coming in and loving the desserts and the meals.
Wow. So along with the restaurant, you guys have an ice cream parlor. So
We do. That's attached to it. At the back of the restaurant, you could go in the back door. There's a counter right there. Because it's limited seating, we encourage most of our guests just to walk in the front door, have a table. We'll bring the ice cream to you.
Yeah.
You'll have a more relaxed environment. But yeah, a small ice cream parlor at the back of the house.
Yep.
And we're excited for certainly the summertime we'll be able to do the outdoor experience. And that's just a whole nother arena that we'll be able to move into. Another thing that we're doing is a new dish is we're calling it a breakfast potato boat, where we carve out a baked potato.
Oh my gosh.
Put that potato next to it on the grill and fry that up. But then we can put, whether it's bacon, whether it's ham, whether it's sausage, we have gravies, we have whatever kind of eggs you want, lots of cheese. And it is so impressive when we take it out to our guests. And it's another one of those wow factors when we carry one of those out and people
That's
are
a
seeing
meal in its own.
It is. And that's, again, that was our intent. I was at Kroger's checking out in the Kroger line one day. One of my former students, Christy, is checking me out, and she says, Mr. Stevens, why aren't you bringing me your potato skins? You know how much I love them. And I said, Christy, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's too early.
Yeah.
And she said, no, it's not. You could put bacon. You could put this in it. You could put eggs in it. And as we're talking about that, and I jumped on the bandwagon, we began brainstorming, we had people on the other 2 lines on either side of us telling us, oh my God, you're driving us crazy.
Yeah.
Will you please stop that? We'll come get one. And as I'm driving back to the restaurant, I thought, my God, we need to experiment with this. So we experimented with it, and we're so excited what we've been able to turn out.
Yeah.
So a breakfast potato boat is the newest breakfast item that we have.
Wow. That sounds delicious, and we'll be back with more after this.
This is not a race. On the road to financial independence, the winners are the ones who stay the course. Learn more about securing your financial future and choose to save. It will pay off in the long run.
Welcome back to Student Connections. I'm Kara Biskarner. We were just talking to Rock Stevens from the Atrium Cafe about their delicious menu. So what do you think really draws the people to the Atrium Cafe?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's multifaceted. Number one, when I told you that we had a checklist, having gone to all those other restaurants, we kind of summed it up and realized when we build our restaurant, we want to make sure we have visual eye appeal, you know, I mean, it has to be eye candy. So the 1890s atmosphere and all the historical ramifications, I think it does that nicely. The second thing is the food, and because my wife has the ability, just a phenomenal cook, we knew that was going to be in place. And the third thing is just great service. So we feel so fortunate that we've been able to acquire some just tremendous personnel to work with us, both in the kitchen, the back of the house, and the front of the house, and that is so essential. I think other things that are appealing to people is that it's that homey atmosphere. It takes them back to when, you know, maybe going to grandmother's house. When you were there, you might have noticed the Christmas tree. And the Christmas tree is up year-round, and I have many guests coming in and claim, well, why do you have a Christmas tree here? And my comment is to them is, I am convinced there's nothing more homey when you walk in and you see a Christmas tree, because it conjures up all of the family memories of Christmas past.
Christmas just makes everybody happy.
Absolutely, it's the epitome of happy times. So the Christmas tree is certainly helpful. We find that being a former teacher, I love just walking around and engaging my guests in conversation. I love that aspect. And I'll walk around and just thank my guests for, you know, supporting us, being at our restaurant. And I've had a number of them, older than I am, say, no, Rock, we want to thank you. You know, well, why are you thanking me? I said, well, in all of our life, we've never, ever had the owner of a restaurant come and engage us in conversation. And we're so grateful that you did that. So I know it's those personal touches. One of the servers that I hired, he had no restaurant experience whatsoever, but I saw on his resume that he was a for-hire magician.
Oh my gosh.
I hired him on the spot.
That's so cool.
And this guy, I love him. His name is Keith, and he now only works with us on Sundays. He has another job, but he'll do these magic tricks. And because I've seen the magic tricks 200 times, I know what the outcome's going to be. I will stand at a different angle around the room while
just
he's doing
so you can see it.
Yeah, because I want to see how he does this. I never see it. And he totally baffles our audience.
Oh my gosh.
To the point, I mean, not only the kids love him, but adults love him. And many of the adults have hired him out of our restaurant to work their private parties and do his magic tricks.
That's so cool.
So we've had one gentleman coming in that does the magic tricks. He also had been a for-hire clown. So I just knew that he's going to project well.
Exactly.
When guests come into our restaurant, it's not just about, you know, a nice atmosphere. It's not about good food, but it needs to have an entertainment value. I want them walking out of there just, wow, that was entertaining. So our servers, that's where they walk in. They're part of that package. We have another young lady that was the lead singer in a band that's entitled Fifth Avenue, and she would quite often sing right there for our guests.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just so delightful when she does that, and it's all jazzy music.
Wow.
And speaking of singing, let's say it was your birthday. Then I would get close to you, and I would take your hand, and I'd say, there's something I need to say to you that goes something like this. Happy, happy birthday, baby. Thought I'd stop by just to say that I'm glad you're here today. And I'd hoped you'd hear me say, happy, happy birthday, baby. And I want to tell you, the first time I did that, first I saw my staff do the applause thing like at other restaurants, and I could tell that the subject was embarrassed. And I said to my staff, okay, that's it. We're not doing that anymore. Took me a week to think it through, and I remembered hearing that bluesy birthday song as a kid. I changed the lyrics. I sang to this one lady that was celebrating her 80th birthday. And after I sang to her, she laboriously stood up, she's in her 80s, turned around, put her hands around my neck and drew me close to her, and half whispered in my ear, I don't recall the last time a gentleman sang to me, and she had tears coming down her face.
That's amazing.
Which meant everybody at the table did.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's my ticket right there. That's what we do at the Atrium Cafe on
Yes.
birthdays. And our customers love that. I'll have former students call me up from Texas, California, saying, Mr. Stevens, I just want to let you know, you sang to my grandmother a week ago, and since then, that's all she talks about.
Oh my gosh.
She loved it.
That's amazing.
And so it's all the little things that we can do that make our restaurant an entertainment event for people.
I know that's what, whenever I recommend the Atrium to anybody, I'm always like, he comes around, he comes and talks to you. It's all those personal touches. The servers are just the nicest people, and it's just that homey atmosphere that really makes the Atrium what it is.
Well, we feel very blessed and fortunate that we've been able to put that team together.
Yeah.
And they personify that whole concept that we're here to entertain.
So do you have any special events coming up at the Atrium?
I'm so glad you asked. Last year we did the Putting on the Ritz, which was in conjunction with our car show.
Yeah.
And that was the last weekend in June. This year, I've been approached by board members of the Cord Auburn Duesenberg Car Club. And the week after the boat races in Port Huron, this will be the week of July 17th through the 20th, they are telling me that they are bringing 25 to 30 Auburn Cord Duesenberg automobiles to our gardens right there at the Atrium, and we're going to have them here for 4 days in Port Huron. Never have we seen this type of American automotive opulence. This is right out of Putting on the Ritz.
Yeah.
This is the upper crust of American automotive engineering. These were the cars that even back in the day, the millionaires, the tycoons, the movie stars would be driving around in. We're so excited.
That's so cool. So is there anything else you wanted to add about the Atrium Cafe today?
Well, I think if people have not been there before, they need to plan on coming in and realizing this is not a fast food restaurant.
Exactly.
You don't want to just, I've got 20 minutes, let's quickly get a bite to eat and be on our way. You want to come in and spend some time. You want to get in, you want to enjoy the ambience of the building, you want to enjoy the communication with whomever you're there with, and you're there for an experience. And I think as long as people have that mindset, they're going to totally enjoy it.
Exactly.
We'll watch people coming in and they just wander around the restaurant looking at everything that's on the wall, and their claim is, my God, every time I come in here I see something different.
Yeah. I know my first trip to the Atrium Cafe was the day before my junior prom, so I'm like trying to hurry up and everything. My mom's like, come on, we just got to go in the Atrium. We were in there for about 3 hours, and we were talking to everybody, and it was such a good experience to go to a restaurant and just kind of be able to relax and feel like you're at home.
Sure. And speaking of proms, obviously that's fast approaching.
Yep.
Another school year is coming to a close, so we would encourage all of the young folks out there to at least consider stopping in, checking it out, see if it would meet their needs, and know that it is, in fact, the most romantic setting in the whole county.
And you can get some beautiful pictures there.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Yep. And that's all we have for you today here on Student Connections on M6, your hometown station.